Welcome to the Karma Leaders Podcast. Author Dr. Tom McDougall explores the concepts of the groundbreaking leadership book, Karma Doesn't Need My Help, 11 weekly lessons to leadership success and peace. Now, let's jump into the episode.
Welcome to the podcast. We have once again with us a special guest, Paul Theriot. Paul, as you may remember, is a CEO of a large physician practice in Alabama and someone I've known for a number of years. And I really value not only his experience, but also his approach to leadership. And he's become one of those people that I just admire in the way he carries himself. And so, Paul, welcome back.
Hey, man, thank you. Boy, I got you fooled, don't I?
Well, that's okay. You just live right there, man. Just stay right there. Just know you are admired.
I'll stay there. I'll take it. I'll take whatever I can get. Sop it up like a...
Well, Paul is one that he's one that just periodically he and I talk, and we talk about some of the challenges inherent to leadership and management. And the topic we're going to tackle today is in chapter 9 of the book. And it was the piece that I really debated having a separate chapter for, but I ended up putting it in chapter 9. But it's this concept of friends in the workplace. Because being a leader of an organization, particularly if you're the top leader of that organization, it can have some really lonely moments. And those lonely moments really occur because of a variety of reasons. One is that you have a lot of pressure on you all the time. So I think we have a tendency to kind of separate ourselves as almost a protected barrier. But Paul made a good point in talking about preparing for this episode that we spend so much time at work. And when we feel isolated, we want connection. And so naturally, you start looking for connection with those people that you work with, which creates its own set of challenges. And in the book, I talk about some phrase that I'd never seen it before. I came up with it, but it's called transactional friends. And the concept is this, is that you do develop those friendships in the workplace, whether it's with direct reports or people who are reports to your direct reports, or it could be frontline staff. It could be physician stakeholders. It could be a variety of stakeholders outside of physicians. So you have all these different people and you develop these relationships. And in many ways, it feels like friendships. But I have personally experienced over, 30 plus years of leadership that you kind of realize once you leave an organization, maybe some of those friends aren't true friends. And let me explain the difference and kind of set the basis for this. I think in the moment we believe those people are true friends. But when you leave the organization, you very quickly lose touch with some of those individuals. And even with your attempts to stay connected or reconnect, they don't seem to be very interested in doing that. So that's where this transactional friend concept came up for me, was that I started to realize maybe they weren't true friends. Maybe they were friends with me while I held a particular role in a particular organization, because of things I might be able to do for them, because of my role and the authority that I had in that role. So we were friendly, but perhaps they were most interested in what I could do to help them obtain their goals or their needs. And the only way you really figure out these transactional friends is you leave the organization. At least that's me. I haven't been able to figure it out real time. But afterwards, and so, for example, my last role as a hospital CEO, I still have probably, I'd have to count it up. There's probably somewhere between 6 and 12 people that I consider friends at the moment, and we're still friends. But there's a lot more than that I don't stay connected with, despite attempts. So is what it is. But Paul, jump in and share kind of your take on this, because you've kind of been like me, that you've shared, you've had a lot of different roles. You've left a number of those roles. And what's your take on this as you had read the chapter and your personal experiences?
Yeah, no, thank you. I think a lot of your comments, when the opening comments are dead on, it is, you think of King of the Hill, kind of, you're at the top of the heap. Well, that top, it's not, there's not a whole lot of real estate at the top of that heap. And so you're sort of charged with making decisions that usually aren't very popular. You rarely have, ice cream parties for decisions that you make. It's every once in a while you get to enjoy that, but, um, so it's, well, what do you do with that? Okay, well, I've aspired. My career has taken me to this point, and now I've been given charge of resources and people, and I want to be a leader. I want to be a good leader. I want to be successful. Well, it, okay, so who do I work with? And you have a team, usually you have an executive team, and those folks, hopefully you build good enough relationships with them. Um, but are they transactional friends? And I like that phrase because it immediately brings to mind, I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and he was bemoaning this guy, a mutual friend of ours, and he says, he only calls me when he needs something.
Yeah.
And and I thought, well, he's a good guy. I mean, this person that we're talking about is not a bad person, but he had kind of fallen into this trap that he's a sort of a high performance. He's in sales, and so he's constantly making phone calls and literally every conversation is a business conversation, even though it might be with a friend. And I thought I never want to be that guy. And I immediately thought I need to be more intentional about having conversations that I don't need something. And so I got to push myself. And even in the business sphere, if you're thinking about somebody, just make a phone call. Just, hey man, how you doing? I don't need anything. I don't want to, meet. I just want to see how you're doing. It is so difficult to be disciplined enough to make those phone calls to do that so that you create or push out this transactional friendship and you create another category of maybe sincere friendship or whatever maybe you want to give it. Um, but you have to be so intentional about that. You have to be so intentional. And, sometimes transactional friendships aren't bad. I, you know, the word friend is a word that I find very interesting, and most of it is based on this long time ago. I learned an African custom, which they regard if you have one friend in a lifetime, you're a very lucky person. And so they hold this sort of concept of a friend in high esteem. And so I think about that, well, a friend is not just somebody I know and I have their phone number. A friend is somebody that I have a relationship with that I do call, hey, how you doing? And they call me, hey, how you doing? It's, but yeah, that takes work. And you have to step out of that. Well, I got to make this phone call because I got this project and I got this. I need to recruit this doctor. I need to do these things. Yes, keep doing all those things, but make the time to make these other phone calls and stay in touch with people. And I think you just have to be intentional about it.
Yeah. And I think, my observation, and I'm going to stereotype, but I think women are so much better at this than men.
Well, they like to
I
talk
really
more than
do.
we do.
I
Right.
think they are so much better at this, of establishing, building, and maintaining those work friendships. Let's call them work friendships.
There you go.
They're just better at it, and they're probably better with the personal friendships also. Um, so men struggle with this a lot more than women, I think. Again, I'm stereotyping. But I think through several things over, 30 years, just as some examples. I had a facility director at one of my hospitals, and one of the other directors in the organization, I've been there for probably 2 years, and one of the other directors came to see me, and he said, I can't figure out why this facility director. He said, I've known that guy and seen him in his role for more than 15 years. And we probably have had 6 or 7 CEOs over 15 years. He said, you're the only CEO that if a brick wall could be burning at the same time, this facility director would run through that wall for you. And he said, I've never seen him like that
Wow.
with any other CEO. And it,
Yeah.
it really caught my attention because I thought, huh, why is that? What's the reason? Because, if I can replicate that, I
Sure.
mean, that's going to be really good for my organization. So selfishly, that was my thought pattern. And so I really started paying attention to the relationship I had with this facility director. And one day, sitting in his office, it hit me. I was probably doing something for him that no one else had ever done.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I wasn't doing it with malicious intent. I wasn't doing it to be manipulative. I was doing it with genuine intent. But I
Yeah.
think that's why we had this relationship. And what it was this guy was big into drag racing. He had his
Oh.
own drag racing car, and
Yeah.
he would go to the local track probably a couple times a month. And I was
Uh,
kind of fascinated by this whole thing. So about once a week, I would go by and sit down in his office, and a lot of times we would talk about drag racing, or we would talk about our shared interest in motorcycles. And probably half the time we'd also talk some work stuff, but there
yeah.
probably were times that I never talked work. I just sat in his office and we talked about our shared interests and my curiosity about his interests.
Yeah.
So I think about that. We established a connection over something that was non-work related, to your point.
Yeah.
Um, but I also think back on, I had, and one physician comes to mind, and before anybody tries to connect dots that's listening to this, I mean, I could tell this same story for probably a dozen physicians.
Right.
So
He's
don't
the
connect
name's
the
like
dots.
the innocent.
But yes, yes. But this particular physician, we got close, and close to the point of on a regular basis, we would go to dinner together with our wives. I can remember we went to dinner together with our wives and my daughter one time to this
Uh,
physician's favorite restaurant. And we wouldn't talk work. Um, and did we do transactions over the years? Yes, we did.
yeah.
We signed a couple of agreements together, but we were always doing some dinners and activities, and I'd go see him every few weeks, and we just sit and talk. Um, but interestingly enough, when I left that organization and left my role,
Uh-huh.
crickets, despite my attempts to stay in touch with this guy,
Really.
there wasn't a mutual interest in doing that. And we never had a falling out. We never had a disagreement. We never failed to reach some kind of terms together on whatever needed to be reached. It
Yeah.
wasn't a strange relationship at all. Now, did I always give him everything he wanted? No. But I always gave him the honor of explaining why I couldn't do what he asked for.
Yeah.
And the dinners just continued through all this. But once I left, all that
Uh-huh.
communication completely cut off. So if I wanted to have a poster child for a transactional friend, it would be this guy. Have
Well,
you
you.
experienced anything
Oh yeah.
similar to that?
Well, so man, the this this brings to mind, and I honestly think this is a cultural thing that you're talking about right now, and it is sometimes it can be very frustrating because I would think that you thought you had a pretty good relationship with this person that was going to last even the separation. I'm going to draw comparisons between two geographies, and nothing. uh, This is going to sound like I might be bashing one of them, but they're both beautiful states. One was South Carolina, one was North Carolina. Worked near the coast in South Carolina, a much more rural area. Um, the basically the people that I interacted with had been there for generations, been there a long time. Even physicians had gone somewhere else to train, come back, practice in that. There was a lot of sort of close connection with that area, made really good friends. As a matter of fact, one physician I actually still stay in touch with, but they had seen guys like me come and go, and it was painful that they were very sort of standoff to make that connection. And I'm really speaking about physicians. Um, and I'm going to make a opposite end of the spectrum was in a large metropolitan city. Everybody knows it probably in Charlotte, North Carolina. Very transient population. When I moved there, one of the things that was told to me is that you know what you call somebody from Charlotte, and I went, no. They said a unicorn. Every and it's like all the people that are in Charlotte, nobody is from Charlotte. It's so
Yeah.
transient. People come and go, And I maintain relationships there so much easier because they weren't there that long. And, it's just, it was a more openly accepted notion that I'm not going to be here that long. We're friends. Let's just hang out and well, I'll send you a text. I'll, send you a post, whether it's on LinkedIn or Strava or whatever, we stay connected. So, um, I think a lot of that is cultural. I think that it's easy for us to sort of internalize that and say, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? Did I not was I not genuine enough with that person? Sometimes it's not you. Sometimes it's just that they want to move on. They're going to make a connection, but they're going to make a connection with the person that's you know, that's there physically there. They're not a remote friendship kind of person.
Right.
That make any sense?
It makes total sense. Okay, so we've established the issue, the problem, the reality, whatever we want to call it. I don't know if I
Yeah.
want to put a label on it because
Yeah.
what I want to talk about is what we do with this. Because
Yeah.
Paul, I don't think it's just me and you. I don't.
Right.
I mean,
No.
it may be. I mean,
Yeah.
but I've seen it with other folks before, and I've had a lot of feedback once the book was published and people read that section. So I think this is a wide ranging issue for a lot of people. So, I had somebody a while back. They just flat out asked me. They said, what are you doing about it though? What do you
Yeah.
do about this?
Uh-huh.
And before I answer that, I want to hear what you think about this because I
Yeah.
have thought this through and I've established what I do about it.
Yeah.
So I want to know what you think.
Um, well, it's such a timely question because I just came through a spell of, work just redlining. And I realized, man, I haven't talked to this guy, I won't name his name. Um, but he's a real estate agent. He helped us with a lease renewal that 2 years ago, and we really negotiated a really good deal for the practice. And he and I, he's a golfer and we're very close. He was very helpful with getting my daughter settled in at Auburn, but I hadn't talked to him in 5 months. And I realized, oh my God. And so I sent him a text and he texted me about an hour later, hey man, yeah, let's go have coffee. So my solution to the question, what do you do about it? Is back to what I said earlier. You just have to sort of be disciplined enough to think, okay, hey, have I talked to so and so and invest? That's why they call it invest in relationships. You have to, it's literal. You have to invest and make time and reach out and all those things that you hear about, but we think, it's not that important. And what's important is I need to get this analysis done. I need to submit this report. I need to negotiate this contract. I need to do this. But, one day you're going to get to a point where you're going to realize, oh, I'm vacant on the relationship account side and I don't have anybody I can reach out to ask, hey, how did you handle this? Because at the end of the day, what we're doing right now, you and I can talk and, hey, how did you handle this situation? And it's always a lot better to get some feedback and learn, hey, don't do this. So I
Yeah.
would say be intentional and be disciplined about maintaining and investing in those relationships. But you have to, and we'll probably get to this, you got to know which ones you're going to invest in. They're just like anything else. You can waste your time. And I
Mhm.
think it doesn't make either party a bad person. It's just like, well, maybe this is just not one I need to be investing my time in for whatever reason. I think you have to be sincere about it though. You don't want to say, well, I'm not going to get anything out of that relationship. Well, that's that's not how you should approach it. Is it just for whatever reason not working out? I think it's that this gets into that whole social and things that we struggle with during the pandemic. We realized we aren't connected as people. And that I could go on a large tangent about that. But I think, you do have to assess whether or not the relationship's worth investing time into, but I'm a big believer that most of them are.
Yeah. No, you're right. And so what was funny is when this person asked me, they said, "What do you do about it?" Uh,
Yeah.
I answered with a single word.
Oh boy.
I said, "Yeah, I did."
I did
My
not.
my answer my answer was nothing.
Oh,
And he said, "What do you mean nothing?" And I said, "Well,"
interesting.
there's more to it than that. I said, I kind of landed on two things. The first one is just acceptance, that it's just a reality of leadership, that people that in a particular role with a particular organization, some of those individuals may truly be transactional friends. They
Yeah.
may be, and
Yeah.
it's not your doing necessarily. Maybe there is some of that to it, but I'm just going to accept it. I'm going to accept it's a reality.
Yeah.
And the the second thing I concluded was I'm not going to get my feelings hurt about it.
Mhm.
If my attempts to maintain the relationship after I've left that organization are not successful, I'm not going to get my feelings hurt. I'm just going to accept
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
Almost protecting my own emotional state on it.
Yeah.
And the third thing is a internal commitment that I would never allow my perception of friendship or relationship to affect my decisions in the best interest of the organization I'm leading. Never allow that. Even if, because we do this, I mean, you're probably like me. I've gone through situations before where I knew in the moment that I may be permanently harming a relationship. Not because it was my intent to do that, but what the person wanted was inconsistent with what was in the best interest of my organization. And
Yeah.
therefore, I was obligated to tell them no, even if it hurt their feelings, even if it disappointed them, even if it made them angry. I still had an obligation to do what was in the best interest of the organization. So, what are your thoughts about kind of where I landed on the approach?
Well, that last point you just made, I'll turn that coin over because I've seen this, and personally, I just think it's wrong. But you probably seen it too, that uh, some of our peers will develop a relationship with the sole intent to achieve a business goal.
Oh
And
yeah, and I was not. I was never that person.
I, I
there's a big difference between motivation and manipulation.
yeah,
Okay,
and
so what you
you
just
could
described is
really
manipulation,
absolutely
and I am not a manipulative person.
no,
I'm just not going to go there. But I think it's disingenuous, and it's kind of it falls in the same category to me as lying. I will not lie. Um, I may dance around it a little bit. I may avoid answering
yeah,
somebody's question. Um, I may, not blatantly just give them the answer because of that, but I'm not going to allow them to misperceive what I said
yeah,
because, someone may get frustrated with what I said or did, but they're never going to accuse me of lying to them because
yeah.
that is the ultimate trust buster. So,
Well, and not only that, it's I don't know. And listen, there are guys much more successful than me that have done that. And I look at it and I go, there are cliches that we could use. I want to keep this a family podcast, but it's like, I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to be that guy. Yeah. Hey, look, he was successful, got that deal done, but I just don't want to, cause I want to wake up in the morning and feel good about it. And I don't want to ever have to be in a situation where, wait a minute, you know, you you just manipulated me, like you said, and I just so I think it's very tempting. I guess that's the point I was getting at is whoever's listening to this, if they're early in your career, it's going to be really tempting to pursue a relationship for a business outcome. If and listen, just be very sort of honest about it. Don't act like, hey, we're going to be the best of friends and you're not interested in developing a relationship with that person because, you know, just like anything else, they're like, wow, this guy's a nice guy, I
yeah.
just are, it's that honesty and sincerity. It's just kind of a theme, what we're talking about. Um, but I want to go back to your comment about you did nothing. My immediate thought was, it's like the Bruce Lee relationship. You ever read some of the, and I don't know if he actually said this, but Bruce Lee was a big, if you study this martial art Jeet Kune Do that he developed, his thing is, be like water. You move around the thing that you're interacting with, and you don't try to you don't try to control it. You just work with it. And he was wrote one of those quotes that you see on these memes all the time. He's like, don't let people make you angry. That's a form of control. If you're letting them
Right.
make you angry, you know, be control of your own emotions. And I think there's some element of truth to that for sure. It's and when you were going through, you think, I don't, whatever comes from the relationship, I just let it. That's what I do. We just, you're like water. Just form around it.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to chapter 1 of the book,
Definitely.
is that anger is a choice. Um, so, I'm not gonna choose to be angry even if somebody's giving me a reason to be angry with them. Um, but this is good stuff, Paul. Good place for us to stop on this. So, greatly appreciate you joining me today, and thanks for sharing your thoughts with everyone.
Yeah, man. Always a pleasure. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, man. It's great to catch up.
Thank you for listening to the Karma Leaders Podcast. Please like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. The views and opinions are only those of the host and guests and are not legal advice.